Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about transition, and we're specifically going to be talking about the things that I think people don't talk enough about when they transition. So I'm going to try to make this concise and very clear, but we're going to be talking about the effects HRT has on the body, the social effects of transition and what comes with it, as well as the serious mental health crisis that befalls all trans people. So if you aren't interested in trans content, I've got other videos, click away, but if you are, please stay tuned. And especially if you're early in transition, I really hope that you'll listen to this video because this is something I wish I had known before I started my transition. So when I first started HRT, I actually vlogged most of the process. It's on my channel. There's a playlist, there's also some instructional videos, and you'll get a much more in-depth analysis of the early stages of HRT there. But I wanted to talk about both the good and the bad because I feel like most of the time when people talk about transition, they talk about the idea of transition and not so much the process, because it's kind of this myth that accept that you're trans, boom, all of your problems will go away. But the truth is that that's the beginning of the journey. And the journey through transition, the journey to becoming who you are, is fraught with peril, it's fraught with social issues, it's fraught with mental health issues, and let's face it, physical issues too, because HRT is literally a second puberty, and nobody wants to be a teenager again. The first thing I want to talk about are the good things that I immediately noticed when I started HRT. My dysphoria was getting better because my hair, my body hair, my facial hair wasn't growing as fast. My skin was softer, it was less resistant to being shaved, I got less razor burn. In general, every day I felt a little bit closer to my goal, and that was alleviating my dysphoria, which was amazing. I was also really liking the way I was less prone to sweat, less prone to odor. In general, I felt more comfortable in my own skin. However, there were a lot of things that HRT did that were impacting me negatively, and I think it's important to talk about. So for one, most trans women, they're prescribed spironolactone, which is a testosterone blocker, and estrogen. So the combination of these two things could be a pretty big adjustment into your body, specifically the spironolactone, because most people don't realize this, but testosterone is responsible for a lot of our ambition, energy, drive, and in a lot of cases, the hormonal shift when you transition really affects your ability to stay energized, stay motivated, keep exercising, because you've lost a lot of a natural energy source in your body. And that is so that the estrogen can take place, and it's not that you won't have any energy or anything, but everybody's different. My body, when I was on spironolactone, got to a point where it was at no testosterone at all, which is actually, according to my endocrinologist, not good for you. And it affects your body's ability to process its hormones properly, because every woman has a little bit of testosterone, every man has a little bit of estrogen, there's a natural ebb and flow, and everybody's body responds differently to the medication they take. So one advice I would really, really hope you listen to is keep in touch with your doctor. If you're self-medicating HRT, which I do not recommend, please make sure you're getting your blood tested, your levels checked, otherwise you could be really damaging your health. Early on in transition especially, mood swings are a serious problem. In general, like I said, it's like being a teenager again. You're more impulsive, your body is going through all of this adjustment, and it can be really hard on the people around you if you aren't processing it properly. And another thing I would like to make sure everybody keeps in mind is that if you are transitioning without a therapist, I highly recommend you change that. Therapy is very important, especially because, well, HRT is a medicinal cure for gender dysphoria. It's not a cure, and it will not help you overnight, let alone, I still to this day experience dysphoria, and without the help of a therapist, without the help of some form of therapy and self-help, you're not going to get there. So take your mental health seriously. Take the process seriously, because it's going to take time. Estrogen specifically also has a side effect of weight gain, and in some ways that's good, and in some ways that's bad. It caused me to bloat a lot, retain water, I was hungry, and I had a really bad eating disorder my whole life. Specifically, it got a lot worse when I started estrogen because I had so much anxiety about the weight I was gaining. And looking back, I wish I could have told myself, hey, it's okay. It's okay to put on a little bit of weight, but not everybody sees things rationally. And my eating disorder got so bad that I was no longer able to metabolize my hormones because most people don't know this, but if you take oral estrogen, you have to make sure that you're taking care of your body too, otherwise you're just going to pee it out. That's what happened to me, and at one point my endocrinologist was looking at my levels and I had no testosterone and I had no estrogen in my body. So I was essentially a walking shell of a person, and honestly I felt that way. So if you are on oral estrogen, take your diet and your health seriously, otherwise you will not process it, and I wasn't processing it. It's a really big adjustment. Your body not only is going through all these changes, but you're also going to be experiencing soreness, specifically here at Pure on estrogen. And I'll never forget the first moment that I bumped into the door and my nipple hit the door, and it was the sharpest pain I've ever experienced. Pre-HRT, my nipples weren't really that sensitive, but it really, really hurt. I will never forget. And make sure you're aware of that too. Just a lot of things are going to change for you. Let's now talk about the difference between oral estrogen, taking pills, and injecting estrogen, which a lot of people do either or. And in my life, I've done both. I started on shots, but I had to give the shots to myself, and I had such anxiety about the needles that it was affecting my ability to do it. And eventually, my doctor prescribed me pills instead, but that had another issue when my eating disorder was flaring up because I wasn't taking them in, so I went back and forth. I'm on pills now, trying to take care of myself, and they're agreeing with me, but it's just important to recognize the differences. So pills won't always be prescribed. According to my doctor, it can actually be dangerous to take estradiol pills if you have high blood pressure. It can raise your blood pressure specifically, and the side effect of that is worse when you take pills versus shots. So depending on your body, one might be better than the other. People who have more fat on their bones are generally more likely to be prescribed shots because the body takes to it better. According to my endocrinologist, the body needs to bind to fat. Like, the estrogen needs to find fat in the body to bind to in order to work. And when I first started my transition, I was deep in anorexia. I was so thin that my body really, like, injecting a needle even in the highest fat content in my body was really painful. And I think that pills were better for me, but like I said, you have to make sure you're metabolizing them. Another downside of pills is that you have to remember to take them every day. I have always been one of those people that has to take medication, and that hasn't been the issue for me, but I know a lot of people forget. And if you're on HRT, you cannot be inconsistent about the dose. It will not work if you're not consistent. All it will do is give you the negative effects of the moodiness and the swings and the changes, but you will not have that consistent restructuring that you're looking for. Shots, in my opinion, are a real pain in the ass, literally, but I have so much anxiety about needles that I can't say I would recommend them, especially if you would have to give them to yourself. Having somebody else give you a shot, at one point my boyfriend was giving me the shot when I wasn't metabolizing my estrogen, and I'm so grateful for that, but honestly, if you have the option, I prefer pills, but like I said, everybody's different. Now I want to talk about the social effects of transition. When a person decides to come out, they usually are met with a lot of rejection. Sometimes they're met with a lot of positivity too, but in general, you kind of have to find a new circle. I remember in high school, when I came out just as gay, I lost all of my friends. And I distinctly remember my closest friend, we don't talk that much, but we love each other. She saw that I was really alone, and that was how we became friends. She came up to me with her girlfriend, and she said, hey, I'll be your friend. And the best advice I can give is if you're being ostracized, if you're losing that community, find a new community. Because you will find the people who understand you and love you, and you don't need the people who won't. When it comes to family, not everybody is as lucky as I was. I really didn't have backlash from my family. I had family members that were concerned or confused or not able to get used to it, but I come from a liberal area with a liberal family, and so I'm so thankful that they weren't hard on me about it. They weren't negative to me. But if your family is like that, I wish I could give you advice, but the truth is that sometimes there's nothing you can do. You can never change somebody else. And some people have decided to make it a large part of their identity to just hate gay people and to harass people and harass trans people. And some people make it a part of their religion. And I gotta say, I do not know what kind of religion thinks it is morally just to just verbally harass and abuse people, but I guess somehow they think so. But if your family is rejecting you, if your family is ostracizing you, you have to take care of yourself. You know, you can only deal with so much change at once. Some trans people, they get kicked out of their house, start HRT, all this transition and all these effects, deal with the depression and mental health effects of transition and social ostracization, all while having just been kicked out and removed from their family. So they need money, they need to work, and it can have such a profound impact on your mental health that my advice would be try to not do it all at once. Transition fatigue is a real thing. If you make your whole life about your transness or your transition, you will eventually grow to resent it. Even if that's who you are, even if that's who you want to be, you have to take time. You can't rush yourself. You know, when I started my transition, I did not live full time. I did not live as a woman for a very long time. It wasn't until about a year in that I started. And I think that helped me adjust more gradually. Because, like, I gotta say, the best advice I have for freshly hatched egg that maybe isn't being supported the way they need to is take it one step at a time. Maybe you don't have to tell everyone in your life that you're trans. Maybe you can go on HRT stealth. A lot of people do that. And if anybody says anything, just don't give them the time of day. You are worth more than the abuse that you will receive as a result of your transition. So prioritize yourself. And remember that no teenager would be able to also handle being kicked out, financially responsible for themselves, socially ostracized, all at the same time as going through puberty. So take care of yourself. Be careful, be kind to yourself, and surround yourself with people that will be kind to you. Because otherwise, you're going to find yourself really having your mental health suffer. Your mental health suffer. I was super lucky. I had the most wonderful family. I had a lot of support, and my mental health still took a really deep dive. I battled depression so much of my transition, and all I can say is there's no real promise that the same won't happen to you. Your mental health will be negatively impacted by transition. However, chances are, if you're a trans person pre-transition, your mental health has already been pretty bad. And I can say that despite the hardships I had to overcome over the process of transition, I am so much happier now. And I am so glad I did it. But just don't buy into the myth that it'll fix all your problems, because it will cause a lot of problems too. And they're not problems you can't overcome, but you can't overcome them immediately. You can't try to do it all at once. And I guess the last thing I want to say is take it one step at a time. Seriously. If you're getting backlash, if you're facing struggles in your life, there is no shame in transitioning slowly. There is no shame in not living full time until you're ready. The truth is that we live in a world where you could be murdered just for being trans. So your safety and protecting yourself is the most important thing. But that does not mean that you can let other people decide what you're going to do or who you're going to be. Because the only person who can decide who you are is you. So with that, I think I'm going to cut this video short. I hope that this was some helpful information. Please hit like, please subscribe, please hit that notification bell, please leave a comment. I would really love for the algorithm to notice me, because I think I have a lot to say that could possibly help people. So be kind to yourself and tell someone you love them today.